Our first application is this. Your organization is working on a website, okay, which is developed in PHP. Yeah, and they have a database which is in MySQL. Yeah, okay. So they want to host a website. How do we do that? So generally, the basic steps over here are: first is you take a Linux machine. Okay, you can do it on Windows also, but generally we take Linux machine because it is cost effective. That's the only reason. Yeah, and after that, we would be basically installing a web server software in here. It could be Apache or Nginx, any web server software. Okay, and after that, probably we might need to install some plugins for our app to work. If they are default, there is no need for it. But if there are some more extensions which we want, we might need to install them, right? And the last one is probably installing DB, database, MySQL. Okay, whether it is on the same server or whether it is on a different server depends on what your architect tells to you. Okay, if it is a very small application and it is used only for within your office, probably you might have PHP or web server and database server on the same server in your office. That's how it works. Okay, so these activities have to be done. Fine. Okay, so first activity, picking up a Linux machine. Okay, if it is in the cloud, if it is in Amazon cloud or Azure cloud, this can be automated. Or even if it is from a virtual machine, it can be automated. Okay, but if it is a physical machine, bringing up a Linux has to be manual, because no tool can basically format and make it available. Okay, so that's the first activity, and then comes the next one, web server. Okay, so what they do is they would basically find out the steps and they would be installing Apache manually, right? And when they want to install manually, I'm expecting it to be a Ubuntu machine, so I'm just writing down the steps. I have to get install Apache 2. If it is Red Hat, they would be writing something like yum install HTTPD. Oh, don't worry about it. For the people who don't know Linux, we'll be using this many times so that you would anyway note this. Okay, so this is the second manual step. Yes, online this. Okay, and the third one is if you require some plugins, you would be doing something like apt-get install and some more plugins, whatever their names are. Wonderful, right? And probably next is MySQL installation. Even for that, you would have apt-get install MySQL server, or there are many other ways of installing it. This is our activity. Now, not that difficult, right? Initially, it sounded to be very difficult because you wanted to deploy a web application onto the web server, right? Now, is it audible, guys? Yes. Okay. Okay. So now this activity is sounding simple. Imagine that you had to do it on 200 machines. 200 machines lo ee activity cheyalante. Doing manually, does it make sense? Because every time you have to log in into that machine and you have to execute the same thing again and again. Okay, it absolutely doesn't make sense. So the next evolution for this was people started writing shell scripts. Okay, so whatever commands are there, they used to write shell scripts for that. Okay, so they're used to write all of that, and they used to prepare or write it in a file which ends with .sh file, and they used to execute that, and they used to get the environments. Wonderful. Okay, now let us just complicate the things further. Okay, now there is some change which you have to do. There is some change which you have to do. For example, your architect comes and tells that, okay, we don't need Apache anymore, let us go with Nginx. Okay, so again you have to change your shell script. Okay, re-execute it on 200 machines, verify it manually. Again, pain is starting back. Okay, it becomes slightly difficult. Okay, and now the scripts which you have written, okay, other teams also want to use it. Again, the complexity starts more because they might want some things, they might want to drop off certain things. So as your infrastructure increases, shell scripts don't scale. Okay, and let us assume that you have handed over the script. Whenever we are writing the script, what is our assumption? Our assumption is you should have just Linux. Okay, we hand it over to a system admin and he doesn't know your prerequisite, and basically what happens is he executes on a machine where the Nginx is already present, where there is an Nginx already present, and then he tries to install Apache on that, and Apache will not work because both will be trying to use the port 80 and they will be having some problems around it. Okay, so how to resolve all of this? Okay, and how to resolve this in a simple way? Okay, so let us just shift our focus from this to a simple calculator program. Okay, so you have written a calculator program. Okay, so you do 2 plus 2, what it gives? Do it on 200 machines. If you execute the same thing on 200 machines, will it be 41 in any case? No. Okay, you do it on any place, it would try to give the same result. Okay, this feature of programming they wanted to bring in into this infrastructure automation. Okay, and that principle is basically called as, always remember, this is a very famously asked interview question. Okay, idempotence. Okay, your interviewer will ask, I have shell scripts which are working, which have been working till now. What is the need for me to really go to something like Ansible or Chef? Okay, your shell scripts doesn't guarantee the same state. The way you write or me writing it depends on the state, but the configuration management tool's first principle is, no matter however you write it, because your way of writing and my way of writing will be exactly the same. Okay, if we are following the same steps, we will not have 101 ways of doing it. Okay, so, and it guarantees idempotence. When I say idempotence, when you execute it for the one time or thousands of time, it would give the same result. Okay, now let us assume that I have given you a Linux machine and you execute basically the script, you would get all of this. You already have Apache server and you execute the script. Okay, it will not cause any impact. It will just check that, okay, Apache server is already available, let me not execute this step. అంటే ప్రతి స్టెప్ చేసే ముందు అది చెక్ చేస్తుంది అసలు ఉందా లేదా, మనకు కావాల్సిన స్టేట్ ఏంటి. ఓకే, సో now in shell script what is that we are trying to write? We are trying to write the steps of how to do it, ఏం చేయాలో చెప్తాం, right? And let me switch over to the farming terminology so that we would understand it very well. Okay, let us assume that we are all doing agriculture. Okay, and we have a worker along with us who doesn't know anything. Okay, so, and you want him to do some agricultural activity, suppose planting seeds. What will you do? You would tell him how to do it also. Okay, but if the person who is sitting over there or who is working over here knows about farming, then what will you do? You will just tell that there are seeds, can you plant it over this 1 acre of land? That's it, right? Antena? Yeah, the first way is called as procedural programming, where you tell everything, and the next way is called as declarative, where you will tell what you want, not how to do it. Okay, in configuration management tools we will mostly 90% of the cases we would tell what is that we want, not how to do it. Okay, so we would just change the script in something which looks like this. I'm writing English statements, this English statement should be converting into Ansible or Chef in the next point of time. So I'll be telling this. Okay, Apache should be present. This would be for your installation of Apache. And next, okay, plugins should be present or running, whatever makes sense. Okay, MySQL should be present. That's it, done. You will be writing something like this. You will not tell how to do it. Okay, the best part of this is you need not worry of what it does, because that tool knows how to convert that into your operating system instructions. This is the benefit which you get. మనం ఏ configuration management tool వాడినా, rather than telling how to do the things, we would tell what we want. Okay, but in some cases your tool might not know it. For example, your agriculture, the employee present in your basically farm knows everything about basically traditional farming. Now you have a new electronic means of farming where you have tractors and all of that. This guy is not aware of that. So only in those cases you would try to explain him how to do it, right? So similarly, there are certain cases in configuration management, where configuration management tool at that point of time might not have knowledge for that. So only in those cases you would tell how, and that is very rare, and that is very rare. And in those cases, we would blindly fall back to shell scripts. Make sense? Other the overall essence. Now, since it is how to do it, how we are not telling how to do it, we are just telling what do we want. It makes absolute easy for anyone to read it. And even for the person who doesn't know Linux, okay, the 1, 2, 3, 4 in the second statements look bit complicated. But when you come scroll down to the bottom, this looks simple, right? Apache should be present. Okay, it might install proper Apache. Okay, and then plugin should be present. You are telling that plugins will be available, and then MySQL should be present. That's it. This is how you write it. This is what the whole essence of configuration management is, right? Okay, so to tell in this way, it depends on what your configuration management tool supports. This is why we learn the tools. We learn Ansible to know what it supports, where we can tell what do we want, or where we can tell how do we want. That's the whole journey over here. Are we clear on the idea? Yes. And now you take any application, it would be like that. Now, if I change basically from PHP to MySQL to Tomcat and Oracle Server, the same thing happens. Okay. Windows Server and .NET applications, the same thing. Okay. So it depends on basically this aspect of looking at the things. Okay. For administrators, I'm quite sure that you might already are understanding the essence of it. So you don't need to write very large or very high volume shell scripts anymore. Okay. So now what is Ansible? Okay. How does Ansible do the things? Okay. So let us discuss about that architecture. Are we clear till this moment? So me పొలంలో తెలివైన పాలేరు ఉన్నాడు అది. That's it. That's the whole essence of the story. You have a very good efficient worker in your farm where you can tell what do you want rather than how to do it. That's the whole Ansible or Chef. That's it. Fine. Okay. Now let us come to know how it works. Okay. And what are the different modes, how generally configuration management tools work and how Ansible works, so that we would understand both. Okay. So for doing all of this activity, there should be one machine which knows about configuration management. That's for sure, right? Okay. Generally, in most of the cases, these are called as nodes. Okay. Some configuration management tools might call it differently also. Okay. Some configuration management tools call it as clients or whatever it is. But nodes is a general terminology. Okay. So whenever I say nodes, what are nodes? Nodes are your production servers. We are doing configuration management so that you can install something like what we have discussed in the earlier step to be installed on your nodes, right? And this is generally considered to be server, sometimes as master, right? Okay. So what is server or master? This is a machine which has a knowledge of the configuration management tool which you are working on. So for example, if I'm using Ansible, I will have Ansible server. If I'm using Chef, I'll have Chef server. If I'm using Puppet, Puppet calls it as master, but even though it is a Puppet server. Fine. So two kinds of machines in this architecture. One is server, the other one is nodes. Nodes are your servers. You are using configuration management because you want your infrastructure to be updated into nodes. Wonderful. Till here clear. Now there are two machines. Who starts the communication? That's the first question. Server can speak to nodes, or nodes can ask. So nodes can ask server. That is the only two ways of looking at it, right? Two machines ఉన్నాయండి. You have two machines. In two machines, who starts the communication? Is it master who starts the communication, or server who starts the communication, or is it the nodes who start the communication? This defines two ways of configuration management. Okay. So server, whenever you have asked to install a new infrastructure, if it speaks with nodes, that is one way, or nodes speak with server. Only this can happen, right? Server speaks to node or node speaks to server. Okay. When server tells to nodes, or when server speaks to nodes that this is what you have to do. Okay. So This is called as push model. Push model of configuration management is when server speaks to your nodes and tells that this is the configuration which you have to apply, right? And in the other way around, if basically nodes are asking the server, okay, this is called as pull model. These are the two popular configuration management system architecture. So you take any configuration management tool, it would be one among these. It would be either push or pull. Okay. So our focus as of now is Ansible. So Ansible is push. Chef and Puppet are basically pull models. Right? Clear till this point? Yeah. So now to push, it is not a very great deal because this is a server. It knows about Ansible. It will push the nodes. It is simple. But to pull, nodes should know where your server is, right? And any Linux system by default will not have this knowledge, so that I should ask to the server because it is not aware of that, right? So whenever you are going with pull models, all of your servers will have certain software installed in the nodes. How will it come to know that it has to ask to the server? For that reason, we would have a software installed on your production servers. Okay. So why am I telling this? Because there are certain cases where you are not allowed to install software on your production servers. Then blindly go with Ansible. Okay. There might be cases where you are allowed to. Okay. Then probably you might think of pull models, which is Chef or Puppet. So that's how it works. Fine. Okay. And this software component which is present on your nodes are generally called as agents or clients. Okay. Ansible doesn't require anything. Okay. It doesn't require any software to be installed on your nodes. Okay. But it expects one thing. It needs to communicate and execute instructions, right? Antena? If Apache server install, it has to install Apache server, right? So for that, does Ansible, who is logging in from the other system, needs to have privileges. So in case of push models, what you would basically do is you would be creating a user, okay, for Ansible automation. This you have to do. Okay. And since we are installing softwares, probably it would be in the sudo group. Sudo is nothing but an administrative group who can install softwares. That's it. Okay. If it is pull model, you would have agents installed. If it is push model, the bare minimum thing is you should have at least a user created, which Ansible is aware of, and he would try to communicate as he is that user, and he would execute instructions for you. Fine. Look simple. Yeah. These are basically pull and push models of configuration management, right? What we are going to do is, what we would be looking into it is, we would start with something called as Ansible, control server. Okay. But while ending, we would be discussing about something called as Ansible tower. I'll not start with Ansible tower. The reason for that is Ansible tower makes it simple. And if we learn the simple things first, complicated things we'll never learn it. So that's the reason Ansible tower will be at the last. And Ansible tower is a visual way of doing all of the things. So which is of not much of help for you in your interviews also. In your interviews, you would get mostly command line related questions. So that's the reason why it is. So whenever you are using Ansible, your Linux machine should have Python, and Python is shipped along with Linux by default in most of the operating systems. So that's why there is no difficulty. Ansible uses Python, but the person who basically is using Ansible doesn't need to know basically Python in any case. But if you want to do development in Ansible, develop anything custom on your own, then probably you might need to know Python in that case. So whatever we are learning in our scope, Python never hits our way. It's absolutely, we'd be writing everything in YML files. YML is just like another XML or a JSON file. We would be learning about how to write YMLs also. Okay. So in Ansible, no programming language. Okay. But in Chef or Puppet, probably you might hit to a programming language of its own or another programming language. So Ansible doesn't have any programming language, and Ansible is basically maintained by Red Hat. Okay, Red Hat is an organization who is maintaining this Ansible, so that's why there is a lot of focus around it. So first thing is it already has a brand and a decent, basically stable versions of Red Hat are already in place in many companies. So it's very easy for them to push Ansible. So that's the reason why we had to learn it. Initially, we never used to basically go through Ansible. Our complete syllabus was just Chef and Puppet. Okay, Ansible we just used to discuss only this first class, whatever I'm trying to tell to you right now. That was only part of our syllabus. But quite recently, from last 6 months or so, we are seeing loads of job openings increasing in Ansible, and it is simple to learn also. Okay, so that's the reason why we had to make it a 2-week course, right? Fine. Okay, so let me put idempotence in a simple perspective, right? Okay, so I have said Apache web server should be present. Okay, this I would convert into Ansible or Chef or whatever it is. Okay, and then I would execute this. So what happens is it would install Apache. Okay, Apache is installed on that machine. I execute this script again. Okay, so generally if you write shell script, what it does, if you write a if condition, it will not execute. Otherwise it will execute the same step. But in configuration management, what happens is it will check whether Apache is already present or not. It is already present, it is installed and it is running. So why do you want to do anything? It will not do anything. Okay, now for example, you have gone and manually you have uninstalled Apache. This is manual step. You have uninstalled Apache and now you run the same script again which you have written in Ansible or Chef. Now what it checks is it checks whether Apache is present on that machine. No, Apache is not present on that machine, so it would try to install. So rather than really worrying about executing the instructions, it will execute about what is the state that you want. And మీకు కావాల్సిన state మీదే పనిచేస్తుంది. ఆ state ఉంటే it will not execute it. If that state is not present, it would try to execute the instructions. For example, you said that I want, okay, I would just try to do it in a, I want a file, okay, in C drive, and I want to call this file as hello.txt. Okay, so this is what you want. So you have written some instruction which looks like that. File, okay, sorry, file C hello.txt should be present. I'm not writing about content. You have just said that this is the case. Okay, and you execute Ansible, you will get that file. Okay, now you have gone and modified the file. You have renamed it into hello1.txt. So next time you basically execute the Ansible code. Is file hello.txt present now? No, it will create it again. So it will always try to maintain this state, whatever you have said. Okay, if it is already present, it will skip it. It will not do anything. Okay, so that's how it works. It always gives you the same state when you execute the script. Okay, okay. If there is any deviation in that, it would work to correct it. If there is no deviation, it will not do it. It will just skip it. Okay, so that's what idempotence is. So what is happening in this idempotence, whether you run it for one time or thousands of times, you are getting the same result. That is what an idempotence is. Fine. Here when I say server, okay, in case of Chef Puppet, this server needs to be, okay, where is it? Yeah, this server needs to be very heavy server. Okay, when I say heavy server, it means that it should have a decent amount of RAM, because there will be loads and loads of softwares working on it. Okay, and there will be services. Okay, all of your server components in the pull model should be services. There will be database server, message queue server. It would be a very large infra. But in case of push models or in case of Ansible, it is very lightweight. Okay, and it is not a service. It would start only when you ask it to start. Okay, so there is no running software even on your server. Only when you execute the command, then it would start and it would do the work. Okay, so that's the best part. And your server need not be FT. You can do it from your laptop also. That's the best part. Okay, Ansible control server Basically, you can do it from a very thin machine also. Whereas the same thing is not possible in case of Chef or Puppet because server has to maintain many things. Here, it is very simple. It maintains everything in a very simple file kind of a structure. But when you go for a tower, Ansible tower, it becomes slightly complicated, but not as complicated as what Chef or Puppet is. It is still simple. Okay. So Ansible is a lightweight software. That's why people like it. And what do you write in Ansible is YAML files. YAML files gets converted into Python while executing. So to make Ansible work, and if you don't have Python, it will not work. That's a basic thing. Okay. So now node lo, if on my node I don't have Python, will Ansible will be able to do the job? No, it will not be. Okay. Make sense? Right. So now I'll just at a very 10,000 feet view, I'll just tell you how Ansible works. Okay. So this is your control server, and let us assume that this is your node. All right. In Ansible, you would be writing playbooks. What we write is called as playbooks, and playbooks is for today is nothing but a YML file. You write a YML file. Okay. And this YML file, you would have basically an Ansible software over here. And this is not a service. Service and enti, which runs always. Okay. Service is, for example, you have Microsoft Word. You install it on your machine. Only when you double click it, it would run. Right? Fine. But if it is a printer spooler, or if it is IIS server, or probably what are the other things which runs? Basically, let us see some of the services. In Windows, we have many services. Similarly, in Linux also you will have many. Okay. These are all the services which are running in the background. Whenever you start your machine, you would see all of them running. Okay. So Ansible is not that, but Chef and Puppet are that. Okay. So you want to execute this, basically that it gets executed over here, and what it does is it creates a connection from this machine to the other Linux machine. And I'm just taking the Linux example. It creates a SSH connection, secure shell connection. Okay. And your playbook.yml file, whatever you have written, gets converted into Python script. And here on your node, you should have Python, and your playbook, which is converted into Python, will be executed on that node so that you would get whatever you want for. For example, you say create a file in YML file. Okay. Basically, that gets translated into Python language, and Python will be executed on your machine. And this gets executed with a user which you have configured. With a user which you have configured. That's it. So in Ansible, it is the most important thing is your node should have Python, and you should have a user configured, so that because it creates a SSH connection, right? SSH connection ante manaki, for the people who don't know about SSH, if I want to connect to your Windows machine, how will I connect it? Remote desktop or TeamViewer, something like that, right? Yeah. So if you are in offices, you would be using remote desktop softwares, but if you are on internet, you would be using something called as TeamViewer or any remote desktop sharing. But probably here you might be dealing with the servers which do not have any UI. So UI undakapochu. Okay, you have to work only with terminals. And Linux machines communicate to each other using SSH, secure shell. That is a protocol, okay, which works on port 22. That's it. That's how we communicate with this machine to the other machine. Fine. So YML scripts, we write it and we call it as playbooks. Playbooks, we give it to the Ansible. We execute some command. We'll be learning that commands very soon. Don't worry about it. And that gets converted into Python script, and your Ansible control server creates a SSH connection with the server where you want to, with the node wherever you want to create the infra, and it would execute basically the Python with the help of Python installed on that machine. Python ikkada undali, ikkada undali. To make Ansible work, it should have Python. Okay. In case of Windows, okay, this SSH will be replaced by WinRM. Okay. In case of Windows, it is not SSH because Windows doesn't support SSH protocol. It is WinRM. Okay, that's the protocol. That's what the stack looks like. Are we clear on all the steps? Simple. Yeah, fine. Now, second advantage, Ansible's execution. You don't require any programming language. Okay, you would be writing them in YAML, and YAML is very easy to learn. Okay, so it is very easy to read and write as well. Okay. This was the same topic which we were discussing about. Yeah, it will have a built-in security because it uses secure shell. And the next thing is you just need to create a user with a pseudo privileges. That's the only thing which you need. There is no need of any other kinds of very complex kind of a stuff. It is generally how a user connects to the other Linux machine. That's it. Okay. How about other tools? Okay. There are many other tools. Okay. So Jenkins. First tool is Jenkins. These are the generally popular alternatives, but Jenkins is not an alternative. Jenkins is a continuous integration machine, and this is a configuration management machine. So Jenkins and Ansible work not as competitors, but they work hand in hand. Okay. So Jenkins నుండి కోడ్ బిల్డ్ చేసిన తర్వాత Jenkins ఏ Ansible ని కాల్ చేస్తుంది. Generally that's the setup how we do. Okay. But don't worry about it if you don't know Jenkins. Okay. So Jenkins has nothing to do with Ansible. But when it comes to Salt, Puppet, Chef, and Fabric, these are the real competitors. Okay, these are the competitors of Ansible. Out of which Chef and Puppet have a decent market share. Okay, Salt and Fabric are even less, have a less market share than what Ansible has. So Salt and Fabric I'm not going to consider at all. So Chef and Puppet are basically pull models, right? So they come up with their own advantages and they have their own disadvantages. On production servers, you need to install softwares. You need to write them in a programming language. Okay, mostly Ruby-like. Okay, that's how we would be writing over there. But here, no programming language, very clean. Okay, but when it comes to capabilities, every configuration management tool has almost the same.